कश्यपः अत्रिर्भरद्वाजो विश्वामित्रोऽथ गौतमः जमदग्निर्वसिष्ठश्च सप्तैते ऋषयः स्मृताः दहन्तु पापं सर्वं गृह्णन्तु अर्घ्यं नमो नमः. My humble pranams to Revered Pravrajika Geeta Pranamataji and the Sadhu Sampradaya, and warm regards to the august audience. It is my privilege that we will discuss today how Swami Vivekananda opened the gates of divinity within all in the society, and especially Indian women, because no other incarnation had felt so much for their overall uplift. So now we will try to trace his trail of being the Vishwacharya with special reference to women. Swami Vivekananda's Samadhi temple construction at Belur Math began in January 1907, almost 5 years after his passing away. Swami Vijnanananda was in charge of its construction and was always seen immersed in the thoughts of Swamiji before the commencement of the work. He used to talk about and meditate upon him constantly while living at the Allahabad Ramakrishna Math. He often also used to visit the nearby Bharadwaj ashram and observe the images of the Saptarshis there. He even had an oil painting of the Saptarshi Mandala made for display in his room, and used to repeatedly remark that Swamiji is all-pervading in the universe. However, his abode is the Saptarshi Mandala. Bharadwaja, the word means bringing about nourishment. He was a renowned Vedic scholar, economist, and an eminent physician. He was the father of Dronacharya, and his daughter Katyayani was married to the Upanishadic sage Yagyavalkya. The ashram of Rishi Bharadwaj at Allahabad was a famous education center even before Sri Ram visited his hermitage while proceeding for exile to Chitrakoot. Swami Vivekananda had written from United States of America in 1894 that Sri Ramakrishna had lived in one life the whole cycle of the national religious existence in India. Romarola has also written that the man was the consummation of 2000 years of the spiritual life of 300 million people. Now we have to remember that in 1944, when Romarola passed away in France, at that time the population of India was 340 millions. So here he is, in other words, saying that Sri Ramakrishna was the consummation of 2000 years of the Indian spiritual life. Thakur was a kind of a spiritual feminist, as is found in Swamiji's letter from America in 1895. Hence, in the Ramakrishna incarnation, the acceptance of a woman as the Guru, hence his practicing in the woman's garb and frame of mind, hence too his preaching the motherhood of women as representations of the Divine Mother. Once Gaurima was picking flowers near the Nehbat when Thakur came there with a pot of water. Holding a branch of the bakul tree with one hand, he began pouring water with the other and continued, "Gauri, let me pour water, and you knead the mud." Surprised, Gaurima answered, "There is no clay here. How can I knead the mud? This place is full of stone chips." Thakur smiled and addressed her as, "My goodness, what I meant and what you have understood. The condition of the women in this country is very poor and painful. You will have to work for them." Gaurima did not like the idea, however. She retorted that it is hard for me to get along with worldly people. I do not care for all the hustle and bustle. Give me a few girls and I shall take them to the Himalayas and mold their character. But Thakur shook his head and said, "No, no, you will have to work in the city. You have practiced enough spiritual disciplines. Now you should serve the women with your spiritual energy." And thus she founded the Sri Saradeshwari Ashram for Women in 1894 on the banks of Ganga in Barakpur. Swamiji had written from America in 1895 that from the date the Sri Ramakrishna incarnation was born has sprung the Satya Yuga, golden age. Henceforth, there is an end to all sorts of distinctions, and everyone, down to the Chandal, will be a sharer in the divine love. The distinction between man and woman, between the rich and the poor, the literate and illiterate, Brahmins and Chandals, he lived to root out all. And he was the harbinger of peace. The separation between Hindus and Mohammedans, between Hindus and Christians, all are now things of the past. That fight about distinctions that there was belonged to another era. In this Satya Yuga, the tidal wave of Sri Ramakrishna's love has unified all. But the 19th century was noteworthy, even historically, from the perspective of Indian women. In 1829, the Bengal Sati regulation banned the practice of sati in British India. The ban was extended to Madras and Bombay in the following year. In 1849, secondary education was made available to girls by the foundation of the Bethune School. In 1861, sati was banned in the entire India. In 1870, Female Infanticide Prevention Act was passed to prevent murder of female infants. The first women were admitted to college courses, although with special permission, at the Madras Medical College. In 1876, women were allowed to attend university exams at the Calcutta University. In 1879, the first college opened to women was the Bethune College, and the first female graduate was in 1883 when the Bombay University was also opened for women. In 1891, the Viceroy of India, Lord Lansdowne, presented the Age of Consent Bill before the Council of India. But even the years 1836, that is the birth year of Sri Ramakrishna, and 1886, when he passed away, are also important even in the world history regarding women. In 1836, the Bradford Academy in Bradford, Massachusetts, became the single institution for the education of women exclusively. And in 1886, Winifred Edgerton Merrill was the first American woman to earn a PhD in mathematics from Columbia University. It was in 1886 that Anandibai Joshi from India and one another from Japan and Syria became the first women from their respective countries to get a degree in Western medicine from the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania. It was in 1886 again that the first educational institution for women was founded in Korea, and even in Mexico, universities were set open for women. Before Swamiji had met Margaret Elizabeth Noble or Sister Nivedita, we find him writing from America to Swami Shivananda. Without Shakti, there is no regeneration in the world. Hence, we must first build a mutt for mother. First, mother and mother's daughters, then father and father's sons. But as a background to this, let us briefly pass by the lives of Swamiji's sisters. His first sister was Haramani, who was born in 1858 and studied at the Bethune Collegiate School. She was an expert in stitching. She was married to Makhan Gopal in 1868 and gave birth to her daughter Shivakali in 1875. It is believed that she either committed suicide or was murdered in 1880 because her husband wished to remarry someone else. So it was Bhuvaneshwari Devi, Swamiji's mother, who then took the responsibility of Shivakali after her daughter's demise. Swamiji's second sister was Swarnamayi, who also studied at the Bethune Collegiate School. She was married to Hari Mohan Ghosh in 1870 and they had 9 children. She spent a peaceful life and the whole family was always in touch with the Belur Math. The third sister, Kiran Bala, was born in 1865. She had studied at the mission school at Ambagan. She was a born singer and had also interacted with Sri Ramakrishna. She was married to Gopal Chandra in 1874 and passed away while giving birth to a son in 1883 named Yatindranath. Swamiji's youngest sister, Yogendra Bala, born in 1867, was a skilled handicrafts woman. She was married to Ramchandra Mitra, a Home Department officer in British India in 1878, and they had 2 daughters, namely Chandramukhi and Padmamukhi. She also committed suicide in 1890 at Shimla due to differences of opinion with her husband, and Sri Ramakrishna had once remarked about her innate purity. But now let us come to 1890, when Swamiji was immersed in meditation at the Kasar Devi cave in Almora in the month of August or September, where he felt an impetus to work at the very climax of his spiritual exercises, which forced him out from his spiritual practice. He had admitted, "Nothing in my whole life ever filled me with the sense of work to be done. It was as if I were thrown out from that life in caves to wander to and fro in the plains below." When Swamiji returned to the house of Lala Badrisha, he received the shocking telegram from his brother informing the suicide of his sister Yogendra Bala at the young age of 23. A letter soon followed with the harrowing details. The impact was so strong that he wrote to Sarah Bull almost after 9 years in 1899 from Los Angeles. "I went years ago to the Himalayas, never to come back, and my sister committed suicide. The news reached me there, and that weak heart flung me off from that prospect of peace. It is the weak heart that has driven me out of India to seek some help for those I love, and here I am." It was probably on 11th March 1898 that Nivedita visited Swamiji in a houseboat at 8 in the night regarding an interview for the Prabuddha Bharata, when he expressed his cherished dream of a nunnery primarily and a school secondarily. In her own words, he pointed up the river in the direction of Dakshineshwar and said he had begun to take steps towards a permanent home for the mother and me, a home where I could have my students and the practicing school could be supplied from surrounding villages. Swamiji's association with the women of Karnataka was through the family of Sri Biligiri Iyengar from Mysore. Biligiri was the owner of the Castle Karnan, or the ice house, where Swamiji had stayed for 9 days beginning from 6th February 1897. This group photograph at Castle Karnan has Swamiji, Biligiri seated on the floor, second from the left, and Ramaswamy Iyengar, his wife Sitamma Devi, and their daughters in extreme left along with others. Sitamma Devi used to worship the portraits of Thakur, Ma and Swamiji in her home. She used to personally cook breakfast, lunch and dinner for all the monks, and specially curries with lots of chilies for Swamiji. After the sudden demise of Biligiri in 1902, Sitamma used to manage the entire household affairs and console the 9 members of the poverty-stricken family that think of Swamiji and all your problems will go away. Swamiji had written to Swami Ramakrishnananda from Darjeeling, Biligiri has 2 widowed daughters. Kindly educate them and make special efforts that through them more such widowed women get a thorough grounding in their religion and learn a little English and Sanskrit. The second one was Thangamani Devi, whom Swamiji had blessed by placing his right hand on her head. She was the eldest daughter of Ramaswamy and Sitamma Devi and was 8 years old when Swamiji had stayed with them in 1897. She could never forget his affection. Swamiji had asked her to study well, to try and drive out all weaknesses, to serve the poor and to give light to the ignorant. Thangamani was later well educated and very enthusiastic about women's education and independence. More than 100 girls in Mysore received education due to her efforts. She had actively participated in Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement. She used to feel that Swamiji is my father, philosopher and guide. It will be a worthy death if I can die while repeating Swamiji's name. And it did happen. The moment she passed away, she had shouted, Swamiji is coming, everybody stand up, Jai Swamiji ki Jai. And the third one is the brave Maharani Vani Vilas Sannidhan, who became the regent of Mysore at the age of 26 years in 1894, within 2 days after the sudden demise of her husband king. Now, let us discuss the word Vishwacharya. In the word Vishwacharya, there are 2 smaller units, Vishwa plus Acharya. Now the word Acharya means Upaniyatu yaha shishyam vedam adhyapayet dvijah sakalpam sarahasyam cha tamacharyam prachakshate. The literal meaning of this verse is that Acharya is the twice born competent individual who bestows the sacred thread upon the student and also teaches him the Veda along with the Kalpa and Rahasya. But the suggestion here is that Acharya bridges the gap between the student and his spiritual nature and opens the door of spirituality. So in this context, Swamiji is really a global Acharya because he taught his worldwide students, brought them closer to their spiritual nature, irrespective of their caste, creed, and nationality. He opened the gates of spiritual knowledge for one and all. And post his phenomenal presence at the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago, Sir Hiram Maxim, the creator of the first automatic machine gun, had noted that the missionary income fell off more than $1 million a year in consequence. But this is nothing in comparison to Britain, which had drained a total of nearly $45 trillion from India during 173 years. Swamiji had said at the Victoria Hall in Madras The first work that demands our attention is that the most wonderful truths confined in our Upanishads, in our scriptures, in our Puranas, must be brought out from the books, monasteries, brought out from the forests, brought out from the possession of selected bodies of people, and scattered broadcast all over the land, so that these truths may run like fire all over the country, from north to south and east to west, from the Himalayas to Comorin, from Sindh to the Brahmaputra. But the other side of his mind is reflected in 1901 as recorded in the diary by Sri Sharat Chandra Chakravarti at Belur Math. Swamiji had said, "If the women are raised, then their children will, by their noble actions, glorify the name of the country. Then will culture, knowledge, power and devotion." I repeat, culture, knowledge, power and devotion awaken in the land. These celibate nuns will in time be the teachers and preachers of the Math. In villages and towns, they will open centers and strive for the spread of female education. Through such devout preachers of character, there will be the real spread of female education in the country. Spirituality, sacrifice, and self-control will be the motto of the pupils of this Math, and service or seva dharma the vow of their life. Swamiji believed in the realization of Vedic women. Aham Rashtri Sangamani Vasunam Chikitushi Prathama Yagyayanam Tam Ma Deva Vyadadhu Purutra Bhuristhatram Bhurya Veshayantim. Meaning, I am the queen of the whole universe. I am supreme erudition. I am the first venerable deity in all sacrificial rites. I offer prosperity. I am present in all beings in various forms. All gods and devotees venerate me everywhere. He upheld the Upanishadic burning renunciation of the Brahmavadini Maitreyi. Yenaham namrita syam kimaham tena kuryam yadeva bhagavan veda tadeva me bruhi iti. Then Maitreyi said, "What shall I do with that which will not make me immortal? Sir, tell me of that alone which you know to be the only means of immortality." Swamiji was so proud of Queen Madalasa's Balo Lapana Geetam in the Madalasa Upakhyan. Shuddho sire tata natesti nama kritam hite kalpanaya adhunaiva panchatmakam dehamidam tavaitat naivasya tvam rodishi kasya hetoha. Perfect are you, nor have your name been given to you now in mere fancy. This very body of yours is composed of the 5 elements. Not indeed for this reason do you cry, wherefore then? Swamiji was in awe of Rani Padmini of Chittor, who along with 74,500 women perished in the flames to save their honor from the hands of Alauddin Khilji in 1303. He wanted us to derive inspiration from all periods of Indian history and arouse our dormant divinity of vibrant, infectious consequences. Lord Buddha had prophesied in 6th century BC, but since Ananda, women have gone forth in the dharma and discipline proclaimed by the truth finder. Now Ananda, The Brahma faring will not last long. True Dharma will endure only for 500 years. Please mark the figure 500. But in the 19th century AD, Swami Vivekananda placed much more faith on women aspirants, spiritual aspirants, and Sister Nivedita sealed the matter on his behalf in the Master as I saw him. With 500 men, please again mark the figure 500. With 500 men, he would say, the conquest of India might take 50 years. With as many women, that means with 500 women, not more than a few weeks. So let us strive in this very birth itself to be one amongst his 500 women for personal emancipation and universal welfare. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.